Huh. We were stopped running the ball on the goal line again.
Goal Vikings, let's win this game. Goal Vikings, honor your name.
Despite the lack of goal line success, the Vikings still found a way to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 25-26. And in your boys' game preview, I suggested the Vikings would win 20-10. Your boy was 6 points off. The final score was 9-point differential here, and now it was 10 in my predictions. So your boy would have known. If I should have guessed the Vikings would have had a missed PAT. I mean, at this point in the year, why would we think we'd get all of them? But nevertheless, let's get into the breakdown. Of course, the Vikings 25-16. They should have won by a lot more. Game stopped, 3 times right on the goal line, and having no running game right up the gut. It was so hard to watch the Vikings run the ball all game. First downs, Vikings had 22 first downs. The Jaguars had 18. We picked up 13 through the air, 5 on the ground, and 4 from penalties. They had 11 through the air, 3 on the ground, and 4 for penalties. Thanks for our boy Xavier Rhodes for giving you some of those. Spoiler for my donkey of the game, I gave it to Xavier Rhodes. Rhodes' close was not on his best game today. It looks like Allen Robinson was getting to his head, which makes no sense because Robinson has had a very off year compared to his last couple of years. So why Rhodes was so I don't know what the word, wasn't settled down at all. He was just so angry all game, making dumb plays. Maybe he just got mad at the first penalty or whatever. But either way, a play that Xavier Rhodes can't not be doing for a starting cornerback. And we were 0-1 on a 4th down, which we turned over on the goal line. And they were 1 for 1 when they picked up their 4th down. Total plays, we had 63, they had 65. Close there, total yards, we had 377 to 315. We had 11 drives, they only had 10. We had 6 yards of play, they had 4.8 yards of play. Who would think in the 2016 Minnesota Vikings would average more yards per play than the other team? We had multiple plays over 40 yards. We'll get to that in just a second. Oh, man. Passing yards, we had 292. A good game for Sam Bradford, to only 230 the other way. He was 24 for 34. And then Bortles was 23 for 37. Bradford averaged 8.6 yards a pass. Bortles 5.6. No interceptions in the game. And no sacks for Sam Bradford. The O-line protected all right, and Sam Bradford moved the ball with his legs. Especially his first play of the game should have been sacked. Bradford got out of the sack and found a Rudolph for a 40-yard gain. Probably his second best game as Bradford as a Viking. His best was his first game against the Packers, where he destroyed the Packers. This game, the Jaguars have a solid defense. Their passing defense is really solid. And then we sacked Bortles 4 times for a minus 27 yards. Rushing attempts, still bad. Really bad game again, rushing the football. 29 rushes for 85 yards, a 2.9 average. They had 24 attempts for 85 yards. So tied there, but they had a 3.5 average, which is still bad, but somewhat respectable. Red zones made 2 attempts. 2 scores in the end zone and 5 attempts. 5 trips in the end zone, they only scored twice. Pathetic. They scored once in the red zone and 2 attempts, 50% to 40%. Wow, how did we win that? Penalties, we had 7 penalties for 93 yards. And they had 14 penalties for 114 yards. Two bad games for both teams in penalties. And then we had the 1 fumble for Asiata on the goal line. And then, time possession, very close. 30 minutes, 56 seconds for us, and they had 29 minutes and 4 seconds for the Jaguars. So, across the board, close in most categories. We had more yards from some of the big plays, but we couldn't capitalize on the red zone attempts. So let's look at the player basis. Of course, Bradford, 24 of 34, 292 yards. A quarterback rating of 106.5. a good day for Bradford. Rushing the ball, Matt Asiata had 37 of the yards for a 3.4 average. Jerick McKinnon looked bad. I think Asiata should be starting running back. 31 yards on 14 carries for a 2.2 average with a long of only 7. And Sam Bradford had almost as many carries. 4 carries, 17 yards, and a 4.3 average. Bradford was our best running back on the day, and that's that. He's a statue. Jacksonville, Bortles 23 for 37, 257 yards, 6.9 average, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 4 sacks for minus 27 yards, and 91.8 rating. Rushing, TJ Yeldon held the ball for most of the time, 17 carries for 59 yards, a 3.5 average. Bortles ran the ball fairly well for 3 carries for 13 yards, a 4.3 average. And Corey Grant, 4 carries for 13 yards. And he also, I believe, Corey Grant was one with the fake punt, which got the Jaguars a first down early in the game. Receiving another big game from Mr. MSU, training camp man himself, Adam Thielen, 4 receptions, 101 yards. He redeemed himself for fumbling the punt return against the Cowboys, and he deserves the game ball. Despite Bradford keeping the play alive, Adam Thielen, 101 yards. Maybe he could split the game ball between him and Bradford, but Adam Thielen, a 41-yard long pass, 4 receptions on only 5 targets. A great game for Adam Thielen. Kyle Rudolph had 4 receptions for 60 yards. And he also had the touchdown, a good day for Rudolph, and a 44-yard for him on our first play of the game. Stephon Diggs, a solid game, but usually you'd expect his receptions to get up a lot higher. 3 receptions for 55 yards, and he also had another 45-yard reception. McKinnon, Mr. Checkdown, 6 receptions for 38 yards, 6.3 average on 6 targets. Diggs was targeted 5 times and only caught 3 of them, which is off for Diggs, but that's the game plan, it's whatever. Asiata, 2 for 14 yards. Charles Johnson, 1 for 6. Rhett Ellison, 2 targets, 1 reception for 0 yards. And then Zach Line had a target. Good job, buddy. Marquise Lee, probably the saving grace for this Jaguars offense all year. Marquise Lee, 5 receptions for 113 yards. That's extremely impressive when the Vikings defense has stopped the likes of Odell Beckham Jr. and DeAndre Hopkins for subpar games, to say the least. I believe Odell Beckham only had about 30 yards against the Vikings, and he had 5 receptions for 113 yards, and I believe a few penalty yards were thrown his way too. So he doesn't get that on his stat sheet, but it helps the team even more. So he was by far the game ball for the Jaguars. If I would do game ball for the other team, he was their MVP of the day in a 39-yard pass on Terrence Newman. Brian Walters, 4 for 31. TJ Yeldon, 7 for 31. Neil Sterling, 3 for 27. Shane Wine, 1 for 19. Ben Koyak, 2 for 19. Allen Robinson, the disappointment for the Jaguars, should be the number 1 guy, but 1 reception for 17 yards on 3 targets. And that covers everybody that caught a ball for the Jaguars. And we looked at the Vikings defense. Eric Kendricks led the day with tackles, 8 tackles, 5 were solo, and 1 tackle for a loss. Anthony Harris had 7, who was filling in for Smith. 7 tackles are all solo. A solid day for Anthony Smith. He was out of position a few times, but I thought filling in for Harrison Smith, he filled in admirably. Now, of course, except for our boy Marquise Lee, there wasn't much of a threat from the Jaguars to really expose Anthony Harris, but nevertheless, he had a very solid game. And Terrence Newman, 6 tackles, they're all solo. Another solid game for Newman. Of course, he was marked on Lee, and he got picked on a few times, but otherwise he did just fine. Daniil Hunter, still being a beast, 6 tackles, 5 were solo, 1 sack and 1 tackle for a loss, and another quarterback hit. Anthony Barr, 6 tackles. Captain Munderland, 4 tackles. Everson Griffin, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss. About time Everson Griffin gets multi-digit sacks. He's a guy that's always going to get his quarterback hits. He had 3 on the day. He's got to lead the team by a lot in quarterback hits. He's always getting there. He's just a tad late. And it's always nice to see when Everson Griffin can finish him off. And what's not listed here, Brian Robinson. Oh, yeah, he's down there. one tackle, but he got the sack and one quarterback hit. He was always in there as well. I can't read my hit. He had a huge hit today on TJ Yeldon. The Jaguar defense, Jonathan Crispin, 14 tackles, 10 were solo, and 1 pass defense. Paul Puzanski, 10 total tackles, 8 were solo, 1 tackle for a loss. And Prince, I don't feel like pronouncing his last name, had 4 tackles, and he would have had a good game. He was covering some of our best receivers, and a solid game. Jalen Ramsey looked very impressive to me. Looked like he was looked like he really deserved his his high draft pick. I think he was top 10, but yeah, he looked very, very good. And Miles Jack, unfortunately, only had the 1 tackle. He's probably one of my favorite players to look forward to because I was on the Vikings to trade back in the first round to get Miles Jack. But yeah, I look forward to seeing his career. Cordell Patterson only had 1 kickoff, but went for 53 yards. Can we talk? I wish Patterson would have returned the kickoff at the end of the second half. We took a knee anyways, and it was only about the middle of the end zone. Just return it. Who cares if it only gets us to the 15? We're going to take a knee anyways. So if you get to the 50-yard line or something, that gives us a chance to take a few shots, maybe get at least in field goal range, and we don't go into halftime at a tie, but instead he just lets it go past him, take a knee, and go to halftime. So I really would have liked if Patterson would have returned that kick and see what he could have done. Thielen, I thought was extremely conservative on the punt returns. He only had 1 return for 9 yards. He had all the other ones bounce. So it looked like he was a little bit scared doing his punt returns from the Cowboys game. And the story of this game, it was a field goal fest. Kai Forbath was 4 for 4 for field goals. His long was 48 yards. 1 for 2 in extra points. He would have been 2 for 2, but we had a false start, so he had to re-kick it, and then it moved it back a lot, and he shanked it bad. I don't know if it was blocked or what, but that was a very, very bad on his second attempt. But he got his 13 points, so really, really good game for Kai Forbath. He was probably the biggest reason we won. I want you guys to tell me down below, do you think we win this game if Blair Walsh was still our kicker? Tell me that down below. And for the Jaguars kicking, Jason Myers with 3 for 5, 60% on the day, and a 61 was the long. I believe that was the one he missed at the end of the game. And he had 1 for 1 on PATs. He got 10 points. His second miss, his last miss, his second miss, whatever. You can't really put too much on him because it was a really long last-ditch effort kick to try to give the Jaguars a chance to get the points on the board onto that kick and try to get a touchdown. But nevertheless, we got that one blocked. Yeah, and Jeff Locke only had 1 punt on the day for 42 yards. We need to come back for Locke because he had a really rough week against Dallas. And Brad Nortman, 4 for 163 yards for a 40.8 average. And it was in the 20-yard line, and his 54 was his long. So there we have it. That was the stats. Now, the story of the game has got to be the Vikings being so bad in the red zone or even the 30-yard line in. Can't find a way to get a substantial drive together. We had a few big plays, and we just stopped after we had the big play, and I set up for the field goal. So in order to beat some of these bigger teams, we're definitely going to have to get another touchdown. I mean, 25 points at the end of the day isn't bad. But if you look, worst case scenario, if we kick field goals on the 2 goal line situations, and then we kick the PAT, that's still an extra 7 points, but then we win 32-16, and that turns this somewhat close game into a blowout at that point. That'd be double their score, and then we would just run out the clock at the end of the game, and we wouldn't have to deal with a lot of that. But that was at the very least 7 points off the board. Probably should have been an extra 15 points if we get touchdowns on both those goal line situations. But yeah, it's something to improve on. We need better goal line play calling. We need to figure something out to get in the end zone. I'd like to bring the Linval Joseph heavy package back in, because that worked well last time. Maybe another tight end reverse or whatever. But yeah, we got to figure out something to do on the goal line to have a chance to win some more games, get us into the playoffs. But I think if we went out the Buccaneers and Redskins will find ways to lose a few games and won't make it into the playoffs, but you have to win the next 3 games to get in. Check out my video in a few days where I'll preview the Vikings and Colts games, and otherwise we'll see you guys next time. See ya.